82 and 83.
So guess what
and
that
I
means?
won it in 92, so I got to win it in 93 to keep tradition up.
If you don't, you're going to hear from me.
Yeah. But you know how tough it is to win this race.
I'll tell you what's so crazy about it. I should have won it. Not possibly could have, but should have won it 4 times, and I managed to crash twice. Tough race to get through, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Now see, right there is, I should have won it. You go down through the garage area, and there's probably 10 guys that say I should have won it, I could have won it, I almost won it. I think about the year that Kawicki had it won, and the last 100 miles he fell out. Marks had it won, fell out. It's not the mental and physical stress of that the driver goes through that extra 100 miles. It's the cycles that the motor goes through. Now you listen to these guys, and they're going to talk about gear ratios, and I think I heard them say it's not very important. It's probably one of the most critical things about this race.
Gear ratios aren't all that important like they used to be a long time ago with the valve trains way down. But on the contrary, I remember I was leading this race with 10 laps to go in the 600 in 1987, had a half a track lead thinking I had it, and the engine blew.
It's a miracle if any of them finish a race, much less the one that wins the race.
It's getting more and more competitive. You know, you used to could run this race, you could start out and run hard a couple laps and get sort of in position and run consistent the rest of the time, and then at the end run hard again. Now you run hard all day long, and this is a tough race to win, one of the toughest, I think.
Let's stop right there a second. Competition. See, that's what I'm talking about. The competition dictates to you during practice to run a certain speed. You watch what everybody does. You say, well, everybody's running 3150. Uh-oh, man, we got to run 3150 or we're not even going to be in the hunt. What happens is it's kind of like they throw the bait out there, and a lot of these guys don't even know they're doing it. They just go out there to run as hard as they can go every lap, practice whatever's going on. And they're just not thinking about 600 miles. So the competition is a factor, all right, not necessarily in the race, but more before the race. This race more than any other. 400 miles at Michigan, yeah, watch the competition. If they're fast, you got to be fast. Go to a short track, watch the competition. If they're fast, you got to be fast. The World 600, that is something you got to put out of your mind, and you got to think pace.
Dale.
Earnhardt.
Hot.
Davey Allison.
Kyle.
Rusty.
Wallace.
Hot.
Hot. Hot.
Cold.
Hot. Hot.
Cold beer.
Hot. Hot cars.
A sellout here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And on this Sunday afternoon, we couldn't think of a better way to finish it this Memorial Weekend than win a good old American all-star fashion stock car race. We've got the best, the Coca-Cola 600. 34th annual is ready to ramble. 41 cars about to face this ultimate test. Hello, everyone. I'm Ken Squire, and along with me today is a two-time winner of this event, Neil Bonnet. And this really is the race for Memorial Day for stock car fans all over the country.
There's no question how important this race is when you mention it to stock car fans. When they think of stock cars, they think of Charlotte, North Carolina. There's over 900 short tracks running across this country, but all focus is right here on the 600 today. It's one of the toughest, hardest races to ever finish, but if you pull it off and win it, it's one of the most rewarding.
Now, Neil, first to 40th, separated by just about a second, 6 miles an hour. 41st provisional starter, Dave Marcus out back, but just 1 second among 40. That's a scramble.
It's a scramble with the times, but the big scramble is everybody's going to see. We're going to go from daylight into darkness. I've never seen them in the garage. I walked through this morning, what spring, what shock, how do I allow for it going from daytime into night? Big scramble down there. The guy that hits on it's going to look real good later on today.
Post time is 4:30, and let's get more of the story as the drivers prepare for the 600 with Dr. Dick Berggren of Stock Car Racing Magazine on pit road.
And I'm with Darrell Waltrip. We want to know about the scramble today. We've had overcast skies when the cars were rolled onto the grid, Darrell.
82 and 83.
So guess what
and
that
I
means?
won it in 92, so I got to win it in 93 too. So I got to win it in 93 to keep tradition up.
If you don't, you're going to hear from me.
Yeah. But you know how tough it is to win this race.
I tell you what's so crazy about it. I should have won it. Not possibly could have, but should have won it 4 times, and I managed to crash twice. Tough race to get through, isn't it?
It is,
I see. Right there is, I should have won it. You go down through the garage area, and there's probably 10 guys that say, I should have won it. I could have won it. I almost won it. I think about the year that Kowicki had it won, and the last 100 miles he fell out. Marks had it won, fell out. It's not the mental and physical stress that the driver goes through that extra 100 miles. It's the cycles that the motor goes through. Now, you listen to these guys, and they're going to talk about gear ratios, and I think I heard them say it's not very important. It's probably one of the most critical things about this race.
Gear ratios aren't all that important like they used to be a long time ago with the valve trains way down. But on the contrary, I remember I was leading this race with 10 laps to go in the 600 in 1987, had a half a track lead thinking I had it, and the engine blew.
It's a miracle if any of them finish a race, much less the one that wins the race.
It's getting more and more competitive. You know, you used to could run this race, you could start out and run hard a couple laps and get sort of in position and run consistent the rest of the time, and then at the end run hard again. Now you run hard all day long, and this is a tough race to win, one of the toughest, I think.
Let's stop right there a second. Competition. See, that's what I'm talking about. The competition dictates to you during practice to run a certain speed. You watch what everybody does. You say, well, everybody's running 3150. Uh-oh, man, we got to run 3150 or we're not even going to be in the hunt. What happens is it's kind of like they throw the bait out there, and a lot of these guys don't even know they're doing it. They just go out there to run as hard as they can go every lap, practice whatever's going on. And they're just not thinking about 600 miles. So the competition is a factor, all right, not necessarily in the race, but more before the race. This race more than any other. 400 miles at Michigan, yeah, watch the competition. If they're fast, you got to be fast. Go to a short track, watch the competition. If they're fast, you got to be fast. The World 600, that is something you got to put out of your mind, and you got to think pace.
Dale.
Earnhardt.
Hot.
Davy Allison.
Kyle.
Rusty.
Wallace.
There.
Hot. Hot.
Cold.
Hot.
Cold beer.
Hot cars.
A sellout here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And on this Sunday afternoon, we couldn't think of a better way to finish it this Memorial weekend than win a good old American all-star fashion stock car race. We've got the best, the Coca-Cola 600. 34th annual is ready to ramble. 41 cars about to face this ultimate test. Hello, everyone. I'm Ken Squire, and along with me today is a two-time winner of this event, Neil Bonnet. And this really is the race for Memorial Day for stock car fans all over the country.
There's no question how important this race is when you mention it to stock car fans. When they think of stock cars, they think of Charlotte, North Carolina. There's over 900 short tracks running across this country, but all focus is right here on the 600 today. It's one of the toughest, hardest races to ever finish, but if you pull it off and win it, it's one of the most rewarding.
Now, Neil, first to 40th, separated by just about a second, 6 miles an hour. 41st provisional starter, Dave Marcus out back, but just 1 second among 40. That's a scramble.
It's a scramble with the times, but the big scramble is everybody's going to see. We're going to go from daylight into darkness. I've never seen them in the garage. I walked through this morning, what spring, what shock, how do I allow for it going from daytime into night? Big scramble down there. The guy that hits on it's going to look real good later on today.
Post time is 4:30, and let's get more of the story as the drivers prepare for the 600 with Dr. Dick Berggren of Stock Car Racing Magazine on pit road.
And I'm with Darrell Waltrip. We want to know about the scramble today. We've had overcast skies when the cars were rolled onto the grid, Darrell. Now we've got bright, sunny skies. It's going to get dark. Where are you at with all these weather changes?
I really think we're over-dramatizing the weather. This is like starting to race about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 to 4:30, 5 o'clock. It's not much difference. It's not really going to end up in the dark like we talk about. Things going to be over about 8:30. we're not going to really know what the track's like. It's kind of like at that point of the evening where we haven't been on the racetrack. The 7 to 8 o'clock practice that we had the other afternoon was about the most realistic practice we've had. The Winstons run at 10 o'clock at night, and the track has certainly cooled off by then. So I think it's just going to be hot and slick all the way to the end myself.
Okay, we'll hear more from Randy Pemberton, who's working pit road with me today. Randy?
Well, I'm back here in row 2. This is the car and the driver that everybody has been watching all weekend long here in practice. He's pretty much been the fastest, but being the fastest in practice and going out and running 600 miles, Mark, obviously two different things. What about this weather thing? Have we been over-dramatizing this going from daytime into early evening? Darrell Waltrip says probably so. Are we?
I don't really know. You know, I wouldn't say no until we get this thing in. I don't think that anybody can predict it for sure. We don't expect it to be major, but it could be, and you know, it could make the difference. A lot of little things make the difference, and if it could be a little bit, and that could make the difference for somebody.
Give us a for instance. If your car is loose or if it's tight, what are the things that you can do here to fix this automobile?
If it's tight, you can put a rubber in the right rear, put a rubber in the left front spring, take wedge out, push the spoiler back a little bit, change the air pressure around in the tires a little bit. If it's loose, you would do the opposite. I mean, you would put the rubbers in the right front spring or the left rear spring, or put wedge in it, push the spoiler up a little bit, and juggle the air pressure around a little bit. It should be, you should be able to adjust to whatever you need to.
Okay, these guys will be adjusting all afternoon long. They'll be constantly communicating with their pit crews, making adjustments on the cars during pit stops, hopefully during caution. If not, we'll take a look and see later on.
The Coca-Cola 600.
Welcome back to Charlotte Motor Speedway. Nearly 200,000 souls in the rolling hills northwest of the city of Charlotte, ready to watch one of the great spectacles of American motorsport. I'm Rick Benjamin here in the STP Pit Communication Center. We'll be keeping track of a wide range of stories here today for the Coca-Cola 600. Let's recap some racing action that took place a couple of hours ago, though. The Indianapolis 500, of course, run today. Emerson Fittipaldi from Brazil, the former world champion, wins his second Indy 500. Ari Leyendijk, the relocated Dutchman, now living in Arizona, finishes second. Nigel Mansell, the defending world driving champion, gets third. His first start at Indy. Raul Boisel, who started outside row 1, is fourth. Mario Andretti, who led a lot of the race today, is fifth. And we'll have more later on. We'll show you some highlights from the Indy 500 coming up. Everyone's talking about the weather conditions here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. It's a whole new ball game this year, starting the race at 4:30 and concluding around 8:30, 9 o'clock tonight. Right now, we're at 80 degrees, pretty muggy, though, and that will play a lot as far as how the engines react today. We're partly cloudy at this point. Now, we're looking at a sunset of 8:31 tonight. That's when the temperature should really start down, but the checkered flag may fall right around that time, too. We go 400 laps, 600 miles on this 1.5-mile quad oval, as it's known here in Charlotte, and $1.2 million in prize money up today for these 41 Winston Cup cars and drivers. 41 cars, 23 of them are Ford Thunderbirds today, a dozen Chevrolets, 6 Pontiacs making up our starting lineup. Ken Squire will have that for you in a moment. And this is a 2,000-acre facility. Beautiful here. It's the biggest complex in motor racing now. We have 120,000 grandstand seats. All of those, of course, are taken. And a crowd of more than 185,000 people on the grounds here to watch a terrific spectacle. Helping us cover that action today from pit road, here's Randy Pemberton.
Well, Michael Waltrip sits comfortably on pit wall before he goes out to do battle in the 600. Michael, you picked up your 7th Busch Grand National victory yesterday in the Champion Sparkplug 300, but you've never gotten to victory lane in the Winston Cup Series. What about today?
Well, I feel great about today. You know, the car is just working flawlessly. It's qualified well, 6th, which tells you we got a fast car, and it's handling good. So just hopefully we can run steady and consistent, kind of like we did yesterday, and if all the cards fall right toward the end, it'd be fun to be in the same position we were yesterday. That was a good race. You know, when you beat Ernie, you know you beat the best. They got a real good program there, and was able to win. It was great.
What about the competition level in this series, and maybe for this event itself? Everybody seems to be pumped up to win the 600.
Well, you look at the times that people were running yesterday in the last practice, and everybody's running the same, and that's why track position is important. A good qualifying effort doesn't hurt anything. Great pit stops are very important, as everybody knows, and you know, hopefully the guys can do a good job here in the pits. Yesterday they put me out in front every time, and look for that Pennzoil Pontiac to be up front all day. They finished that little race they had up in Indiana today, and all my sponsors are watching. Say hello to everybody, Jim Payton, all the guys from Pennzoil, and hope they enjoy this one today.
Okay, maybe Michael Waltrip will hit victory lane for the first time today. Dick Berggren?
Well, I'm with the man that's on the pole, Kenny Schrader. Kenny, you got kind of tall odds against you. This is the 34th running of the event, and so far the guy on the pole has only won it 4 times. What are you going to do to fix those odds?
Well, I think the odds are in my favor. It sounds like somebody's due. I mean, you know, we were the fastest car qualifying night, run good in Winston last week, so we're ready.
We'll see. He started on the pole in 1990, finished 11th. He hopes to do better today.
Now covering the action further back along the garage row today, where a lot of work will be done to try to keep cars in the race, will be Johnny Hayes. Johnny, what's the story?
Guys, let me tell you what the real story is. Everything seems calm and relaxed. That's not the case at all. The drivers, the crew chiefs, the owners, they're all scared to death. This is the first time we've ever started this race this late in the afternoon, 4 o'clock. The race is going to finish somewhere around 9 o'clock tonight, under the lights. That means you don't know what setup to use, what springs, the weather's going to change. So you can throw your little black book, all your trick setups, throw them out the window. It's not going to work. You're going to have to fight for it. Every single pit stop, you're going to have to make changes. And the guy that hits that correct setup will be the guy that's going to win this race.
Well, thank you, Johnny Hayes. Here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, we're counting down toward this 4:30 start. Just moments ago, 7 members of the Golden Knights carried the flag of number 7 into the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Number 7, defending Winston Cup champion Alan Kowicki, gone victim of a fatal plane crash last month. This Memorial Weekend, this crowd in Charlotte, this race is a memorial to Alan Kowicki and all in racing who aren't here, but who, like him, always gave their very best.
Here are 10 good reasons for you to shop at True Value hardware stores.
Here at the 1.5 miles, Charlotte Motor Speedway, 24 Fords, 12 Chevrolets, and 5 Pontiacs are amassed on pit road, shortly to fire up and run 600 miles around these high banks today. Chevrolet has won this race on 10 occasions, Ford 7, and Pontiac a total of 5 times. Let's go to Randy Pember.
Well, Brett Bodine is calmly sitting here in his Quaker State Ford. He has had his game face on, and he's been ready to go for at least somewhere around 5 minutes. Why the game face so early?
Well, I just like to get my thoughts, you know, what the car did in the last practice, try to reenact that situation so I know what to expect when we start this thing. You know, the track hasn't been run on for almost a full day now, and, you know, it's a little dirty, and we got to expect it to be a little slick that first lap.
What about it, Brett? Can you pick up your 2nd career Winston Cup win and the biggest win of your life here today?
Well, I think so. I think we're up to it. You know, this race is so long and so many factors play into it. Luck is going to be the big key, I believe, because there's so many good race cars out here today.
Randy, I tell you, he keeps talking about the track. These guys like to practice every day, and with this being an afternoon race, the track has been totally empty all day long with all these functions before the race, so they want to see what it feels like. They can't wait for it to start. Let's go down to Dick Berggren.
Well, Neil, Steve Meals set up the car that won the 500-mile race here on TBS last fall. He's got the same car here. Do you have enough adjustability into this thing to keep it running fast all day and all night?
Well, that's the secret to the whole deal. You know, the racetrack's changing right now. It's a lot cooler today than it was this time yesterday. We loosened the car up a little bit this morning, thinking if we're a little bit loose when the sun's out, it'll be just fine when the sun goes down later on. We were okay in the Winston with the car, and we think we'll be all right tonight.
On this Memorial Weekend, taps are now being played at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Shortly, the national anthem, and then the final countdown to the 600.
Ladies and gentlemen, by a member of the 18th Airborne Corps, the claps were entered by Sergeant William Kennerly. And now, please remain standing as Tex Brooks and Ronnie Dunn sing our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, Brooks and
now,
Dunn.
ladies and gentlemen, Brooks and Dunn. As the flyover is about to take place, we'll sing our national anthem.
Can you see
by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night. Say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, directing your attention to the start-finish line of the Charlotte Motor Speedway, where the chairman of the board, Bruton Smith, will give the command to fire the engines.
Pit stop. Everybody comes down and fills their gas cans. Everybody comes running. Like right now. Steve Byrne.
Still clearing the main straightaway here before we settle down for a start on the 600 this afternoon at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Front row at 177 miles an hour. Ken Schrader of Fenton, Missouri is there, and Brett Bodine is alongside. So it's a Chevy Ford to begin the day here in the 600 miler, a race that was spectacular last year, and at the conclusion it all came down to a show for Dale Earnhardt. Other previous winners in the event include Rusty Wallace, the 5-time winner, Darrell Waltrip lining up for this race, and Davey Allison getting set to go here this afternoon and this evening. Well, once again, let's try to get the chairman of the board. That would be Bruton Smith to give the command to fire these engines and get this race underway for the 34th time.
Gentlemen, start your engines!
Feel ready to buckle down, button up, and run it out. 400 laps, the distance to be run, Neil. Got any predictions on who might pull this one off?
Ken, there's so many cars been running good. I kind of use the Winston as a gauge because it's going to be same circumstances. Mark Martin awful good in that thing. Earnhardt, a couple of guys really ran good that night. I can't help but think they'll come back today. Schrader made a lot of moves, you know, and he won the Winston, ran good in the Winston Open and ran good in the Winston, so he's certainly being dealt with from the pole.
It's a record crowd out today. Over 162,000 tickets sold. It is the 5th time in a row that the 600 has been sold out. Probably the best race we ever saw here was when Benny Parsons and Darrell Waltrip went right down to the finish line in the year 1980. It could be duplicated. I'm looking for Mark Martin to have a sensational afternoon. He nearly won the Winston last Saturday night. He has been very formidable through all the practice periods. He's looked as stout as anyone out here. There is a great potential for an upset in the form of Michael Waltrip in number 30. He won here yesterday and literally drove under Ernie Irvin with about 6 laps to go and then sped on to victory. He's driving a car that has never been run before, although they've changed the front end on it 4 different times. They keep trying different snouts, but they think they've got one that will really work, and he has a great starting position in that 6th position. You're looking from inside the car of Bobby Hillen. He's in the Junie Donlevy car, number 90, and that machine ought to give us some spectacular pictures as the day continues, and the evening as well. It's about 4.5 hours to decide this 600-mile contest. Along pit road, there is a great deal of not anxiety, but let's say anxiousness because of the changing temperature. It may not get dark, but the temperature is going to dip, and do you have the right suspension system to carry that last 100 miles?
That's going to be a big question, but one thing I can't help think of, Ken, you run one of these motors 500 miles week in, week out. That's about the length of the fuse on these things. Okay, we're going to put another 100 miles on it, but it's also going to be late at night. The motor's going to be asked to perform at a higher level. The cooler it gets, the faster they go. So that last 100 miles is probably going to be the hardest mileage put on that engine. There's going to be a lot of these things lay down before the day's over.
Indeed, there will be. But one of the big stories here with the point battle so intense. Imagine, come to this 10th race, just 20 points between 1st and 2nd, and they're about ready to roll out for 2 laps. They'll go back into that garage area and do anything. Get these cars back on the track, try to score some points toward all that bonus money at the end of the year from Winston. All right, field is rolling. We're set for a beginning to 400 laps, 600 miles of stock car racing today here on TBS. Let's take a look at the starting grid for the 34th annual Coca-Cola 600. On the pole at 177 plus miles an hour, new record for the 600 from Missouri, Ken Schrader. Alongside is Brett Bodine from Chemung, New York in the Kenny Bernstein number 26 Ford. In row 2, it's Mark Martin, considered a contender to take it all for the first time for Jack Roush in the 34th annual Go. Beside him is Rick Mast, his best qualifying effort of the year. In row 3, it's Jeff Bodine, winner at Sears Point 2 weeks ago. And Michael Waltrip, winner of the 300 yesterday afternoon. In row 4, Sterling Marlin, 8 second places, still looking for his first win. And Rusty Wallace. He's second in points, and he means to do well today. Row 5 is Rick Wilson in the Richard Petty car. Alongside is Jimmy Hensley, driving the late Alan Kowicki, number 7. Row 6 is Greg Sachs out of Manatuck, New York. And alongside is Morgan Shepherd for the Wood Brothers. In row 7, it's Bobby Labonte, the top rookie in the field in car number 22. And Dale Earnhardt, 2-time winner of the 600, is on the outside of row 7. In row 8, it's Lake Speed from Mississippi. And Derek Cope from Spanaway, Washington. Row 9 is Wally Dallenbach Jr. from Colorado. And Ted Musgrave, the ASA star who's been so strong this year. In row 10, Ernie Urban ready to roll. Ricky Rudd is there as well. His best finish in this event has only been a 7th. Row 11 is Jeff Gordon, the outstanding 21-year-old rookie from Pittsburgh, Indiana. And Phil Parsons. Row 12, Davey Allison, former winner of the 600. Kenny Wallace, another outstanding rookie, is flanking him. Row 13, Harry Gant, having a bad season thus far, wants to turn it around today. And Hutch Strickland from Alabama in a Junior Johnson car. Row 14 is Jimmy Spencer, Mr. Excitement from Pennsylvania. And Bobby Hillen from Midland, Texas. Row 15 is Texas Terry Labonte, the former Winston Cup champion, as well as Bill Elliott. He, too, trying to come back from a poor start on 1993. Row 16 is Darrell Waltrip, the 5-time 600-mile champion. And Dale Jarrett, the 1993 Daytona 500 champion. Row 17, Jimmy Smut Means from Alabama. And Rich Bickle. Row 18, Kyle Petty, well back in the field today. Beside him is Dick Trickle from Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. Row 19, Mike Wallace, another one of those Wallace kids out of Missouri. Chad Little from Spanaway, Washington in row 19 as well. Row 20. And as they come down in row 20, it's Jimmy Horton and Joe Rutland, Dave Marcus, the provisional starter, and the 34th annual Coca-Cola 600 is underway.
guys jockeying around early. They want to get a good position. We see Schrader jump out there in the lead. The white car, Schrader, the blue and white, Mark Martin on the inside. Martin at number 6. He's awful strong all week in practice and the other night in the Winston. Boy, when they race side by side like this, Schrader's getting a little bit of breathing room.
4 car lengths as they clear the 4th turn for the first time. And with 399 laps to go, by 6 car lengths, Schrader jumps out in front. Into second. Mark Martin, Rick Mast pulls up into 3rd. Mast to the number 1 car who had started in 4th, getting a spot. Back straightaway as they straighten them out. Schrader. He's a man on a mission as he pulls to a 3-car length advantage. Here's Earnhardt coming up beneath Rusty Wallace. There's Jimmy Hensley in the car 7 right there as well. Morgan Shepherd in the 21 deployed just in front of Earnhardt.
There goes Rusty right back around the outside of the number 3 car of Earnhardt.
That's a battle for 11th position. Earnhardt on the bottom. Car sticking. Holding well. Rusty Wallace staying right with him. Remember the fireworks at Talladega between these two, and Wallace in the 2 car came across the finish line 8 feet in the air upside down to finish 6th. Here they are still side by side. Wallace claimed that wasn't Earnhardt's fault. He did get bunted. He was trying to throw a block out there to hold position as they came to the line that day. How will it end this day? In the Coca-Cola 600 and still side by side. For the moment, Earnhardt has the advantage. Good struggle. Back for 11th position while Morgan Shepherd runs 10th. Meanwhile, for the lead, it's a Chevrolet out in front. Schrader, who set the new record at 177 plus with a mile and a half. And right behind him, Mark Martin closes up.
Yeah, Mark really closed up once he got around Rick Mast. In a second, he's moved right up behind Schrader. Seems like he's got a little bit of muscle right up off the corner. Mark's car works good as he gets in the throttle up off the gas, up off this corner.
Hut Strickland in trouble. The McDonald's car slowing down out there. Hut Strickland slowing down, and there go your leaders into turn number 1. It's Schrader in first, Martin in second. With that battle for second place, or the 3rd place beginning to develop as the 15 comes down on the inside. Bodine.
26 cars. Boy, on pit road, I'll tell you, Ken, that's unusual. Something had to go bad wrong on it for him coming that early.
The Quaker State car for Kenny Bernstein on pit road. Well, that Haviland lineup that we saw at the beginning of the race had Schrader and Martin first and second. And after 5 laps, that's just how they're running. Here comes Martin peering to the inside and going for the lead. It's taking place at lap number 6. Turn 1, change of leadership. Give it to Mark Martin. Schrader falling to second. And meanwhile, popping up into that 3rd spot is Jeff Bodine. Rick Mast back to 4th. Michael Waltrip stable in 5th position.
Boy, every time you get your stopwatch out in clock practice, that 6th car has been one of the fastest cars on the track. And I think everybody was looking for him to be able to jump out there early.
Let's check on the Brett Bodine pits.
He came in, Ken. The engine was silent. He has taken his gloves off, thrown them on the floor of the car, and is now unhooking his helmet. The engine has failed on Brett Bodine's car early in this race.
Brett Bodine getting in just 5 laps, and it seems to be over. Guy who gave it a tremendous run in qualifying.
Guy giving it a tremendous run. Now Schrader, he followed the 6th car for a while, and then he turns right back down under him, takes the lead away, going in the 3rd turn. Ken Schrader's back out front.
And Jeff Bodine in the 15 closes right up on Martin. Chevy in first, Ford second, third, fourth, Pontiac in 5th. At Pontiac, Michael Waltrip. And remember what Darrell Waltrip said about the race and why it was so important? Just note that at the present time, Darrell Waltrip was running well back in the field. He's pacing himself, taking his time before he'll start to bring number 17 up. He's running 41st at this moment, which is 8 laps deep into the race.
Well, I'm watching the 15 car right on the deck lid of the 6. We heard him say, a while ago, we heard the crew chief say that they loosened that 6 car up for this race. Whenever Schrader got behind him, got him loose enough he could pass him, they might have to deal with that. They might be just a tick loose right now.
Back to Dick Burton.
Brett Bodine walking back to the garage. Can you tell what happened to that engine, Brett?
Just something broken about it, man. It blew up big time. I just can't believe this happens to us. It's one of the biggest races of the year, and you know, we had such a good car all week, last week and this week, just waiting for this day to come, and you know, it's just real disheartening.
That's the picture of disappointment right there.
Ken, one reason it's so disappointing to these guys is they probably had 5 or 6 or maybe 7 or 8 engines in that car in the last 2 weeks, trying different engines, and you usually say, I'll pick my best one, and then it run that short of time. It really makes you wonder at times.
So there's your battle up in front. It's Schrader and Martin, Chevy versus Ford, with Bodine running third, Mast fourth, and Michael Waltrip in fifth.
This Memorial Day, TBS.
Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Coca-Cola 600 here to cap off your Memorial Day Sunday afternoon. Ken Schrader leading Jeff Bodine. We're early on in the action here today. The great race shaping up already. One of the stories we'll keep track of for you all afternoon here, the True Value Hard Charger battle. True Value Hardware posts $5,000 at every Winston Cup race, $50,000 season long. The leader of every lap gets 5 points. Second through fifth get corresponding points. Here's a look at the standings at this point of the season. Rusty Wallace with 4 victories, your leader in the True Value Hard Charger standings over Dale Earnhardt, Mark Martin, Ernie Irvin, Kyle Petty is fifth. All those drivers bidding for those points. Today's awarded, of course, at the end of the season, the $50,000 big prize.
Thank you very much, Rick Benjamin. There you see from the steel aerial platform these shots of the Coca-Cola 600. Steel, makers of the world-famous steel chainsaws, string trimmers, and other outdoor equipment. Take a look a little further back in the field. There's Hut Strickland's number 27, which has come back on the track. You'll recall he had some problems earlier, and he's back with the program at the 34th position. Randy Pemberton has more.
Well, gentlemen, the Junior Johnson car has a little bit of a problem. It's got a brake pedal that's sticking. Now, it's sticking down on the rotor, so the brake pads are sort of rubbing on the rotor, and it's slowing the car down. They're going to try and put a new spring in it to help retrieve that brake pedal back up where Hut can use it. So a little bit of a problem, but certainly not as bad as the throttle sticking, I would suggest, Neil.
No, you're right. What they'll do is they'll actually put a manual type spring up under the dashboard that goes down to the brake pedal and just physically pull it back up like you would with your top of your foot just lifted up.
Battle for 11th position here. And you know who those contenders are. There's Ernie Irvin down at the bottom of the racetrack, and Rusty Wallace right there in the Miller Genuine Draft number 2 on the outside. And the Kodak car for the moment has the advantage. And closing up on them is the number 22. That's Bobby Labonte, who's come to 13th spot. Meanwhile, take a look at this battle. That's Schrader, and he is getting all he can handle from Jeff Bodine in number 15. Bodine on a roll of recent. Remember that he won the last race on the road course at Sears Point, California, out there at Sonoma.
Ken, what's unique about this? Watch this right here. Watch the 15 car. He's been trying him high, trying high. Take a look inside, but watch when he goes in the third turn. He's been taking a real high line. Schrader's been diving to the bottom. Bodine runs up real high, tries to drive around the outside, running a completely different line. He's almost got a nose up there where Schrader's got to get in that room. He's trying the outside line early.
20 laps complete as they come by. 380 remaining, and it's a contest up in front for the first. And remember those words of Waltrip about pace. Now we're being told that the Brett Bodine, the Quaker State car number 26, they're holding the score. They may try to get that car back out here and into action and pick up some points.
Ken, these points are so critical. If they cut it in half, they'll try to wheel both pieces back together and just ride the rest of the day. They've got to get these cars back in the race if they can.
Currently, Bodine 15th in the Winston Cup standings. Schrader fending off Jeff Bodine, the elder brother, and Rick Mast stays right there in third. Mast is having his best race of the season in the early going here in the Coca-Cola 600. Deployed just behind Rick Mast is Mark Martin in fourth. Morgan Shepherd is in fifth. You see him there for a moment off turn 2. And behind Marlin is Dale Earnhardt. That's Marlin in 6th, Earnhardt in 7th, Lake Speed in 8th, Rick Wilson 9th, Michael Waltrip is 10th, Ernie Irvin 11th, Rusty Wallace 12th, Bobby Labonte 13th, the rookie Jeff Gordon 14th, Greg Saxon 15th, and Bill Elliott shows 16th.
Well, it looks like the pace is kind of leveled out right again. Let's go down to the garage area with Johnny Hayes to see what's going on behind the scenes.
Neil, you can see that this is the first car in tonight. You can also see that they're working very hard to try to get it back in, but it looks like they just closed the hood down. Everybody looked away, so I'd say Brett Bodine is out for the race. I think this is the first of many because I expect us to have a lot of equipment failure today.
story down in the garage area that after they had held the score, figuring they might get Brett Bodine back in, it's all officially over on that car number 26.
Ken, what they can look at a lot of times, that thing might break a piece in the engine. As long as you use the same engine block and those components, you can rebuild that motor in the garage if you use the same engine block. This long a race, I'm sure they were looking if there was anything salvageable, put it back together, but it must have been too bad to even rebuild down there.
Well, you're watching Schrader continuing to have a grand time. Yesterday was his birthday. Today he's trying to give himself a present. 38-year-old Schrader leading out here for Rick Hendrick. Rick Hendrick Racing has won 33 Winston Cup racing. They've had 1, 2, 3, 4-car teams. This year it's a trio of cars, and for the moment it's Schrader continuing to dominate as they'll come around to complete 25 laps this time.
One of the other drivers, gentlemen, we expect to see up in that battle soon is this gentleman, the defending champion of the Coca-Cola 600. Dale Earnhardt started 14th. He's telling his crew he's really chasing the setup on the car early on. The car's tight in the middle of the corners, loose coming off, but Earnhardt isn't letting